Well, hello everybody. How are you today? And hello to Captive Desk, who I see in the comments. So I never know. Do we call it the chat or the comments? For me, it gets a little bit confusing. Different terms for different things. So anyway, welcome. It's just going to be a short, sharp uh, show from the Bawles, and trying to burst the bubble that is Kent Hovind and his mindless supporters, otherwise known as drongos in my language, anyway. But anyway, oh dear, it's a bit of a sad day for me today, because I was on holiday a few weeks ago, and I posted a little short and from an area that I was in the Queensland part of Australia, and it seemed quite popular. People seemed to quite like it. And then the next thing, after that, I was down in the Sydney area, and I went to Bondi Beach. And then last night uh, at Bondi Beach, there was a terror attack, and some 15 people were shot and killed. And this sort of thing just doesn't happen normally in Australia. I expected it in America, and the usual thing it is, oh, well, thoughts and prayers, which don't seem to do much good. But I didn't expect it in a place like Australia, which is, even though there's groups with strong religious beliefs, it's still a secular society. The rules are for everybody. Everybody has to obey the rules, regardless of religion or race or whatever. And so for this to happen in what is called the lucky country was a big shock to me. So just goes to show nowhere is safe. It also shows that God's plan isn't really the work of any particular intelligent being or something, because they wouldn't plan for that or plan for people to be like that. So anyway, just thought I would start the show that way, just to mention my thoughts and sympathies, but not my prayers, because as I say, it doesn't seem to do much good. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, I think the big news of the week in the Hovind sphere was he managed to get on this show by a chap called George Janko. Sorry, I get the name wrong. It's very similar for me, pronouncing it. And there's quite a few people watched that, and a lot of people in the audience were mindless followers of Kent. So I got on there and had a few things to say, and I'd encourage anybody who was interested to make sure they have a say uh, uh, on the George Janko show, so it just doesn't look as though everybody out there is a Kent Hovind supporter, which of course the show made it look like that. I'd never heard of George before, uh, or I think it's his wife or something. Never heard of him before. To be honest, he seemed pleasant enough. I don't know if he's the brightest spark in the universe, but he does have quite a few members. And, my only real issue was that he didn't sort of ask the hard questions. So when Hovind did his usual wank about majoring in maths and science, if I was the introvert, I'd say, oh, where was that? Because Kent's lying. And he didn't ask the hard questions about when Kent lied about the reasons he was convicted. George didn't know any better than to, so he didn't ask those hard questions. So I'll be trying to get on George's show, and I'm going to correct those points one by one. That's presuming George will have me on, because I can't get on Kent's show. Isn't it so funny when Kent is going on and on and on about being willing to debate anybody, and everybody else is a chicken. He even makes chicken noises. Quite frankly, it's the first time I've ever seen a scientist clucking, but he clucks like a hen. Yeah, so he's a real clucker, and I think he's just got no intention of debating anybody, because when he does have the people on, there's a guy called Pluto Pilot, and there's our own creationist crybaby, and he just talks over them and then shuts them off. Okay, so look, there's a couple of questions there. Frank Flowers Jr. Good evening, Claude. How are the Bawles these days? Well, I needed to give them an itch. That's why I came on the show. And I mean that metaphorically, because unlike the Bible, I'm not to be taken literally. And so I needed, because I sort of got a bit restless after all the Hovind rubbish I'd watched for the week. I put a lot of stuff up. Hello, Just King Theo, Justin, as well. Yeah. So yeah, I just thought, I need to come on and say a few things. Won't be a long show, especially if people don't come on. But that drove me crazy seeing Kent, and it sort of plays into his hands a bit getting on these shows, and especially if it's a soft touch host who doesn't ask those hard questions. I would really like to be providing the questions, because they won't do that. Kent would run. So one of those things. What's the sound the chicken makes? Well, he's pretty good at doing that. So I'm able to talk about anything. He's increasingly dissing Sandra, because he's saying things like, did she bleed that place dry? So it went from her leaving to him sort of trying to court her again. Want to take her to see the Northern Lights and all sort of shite. And then suddenly, when none of that worked, then cut her off completely. Now she's stolen money and bled the place dry and all that. I don't believe any of that. Just don't believe it at all. But unfortunately, some of his supporters do. Yeah. Yes, he's running. It was on Facebook. Kent Hovind memorable moment or something like that. And if you've got the video, you can put it up, and you could win a prize. I'm not sure if probably the first prize might be meeting him, and the second prize might be 3 meetings with him or something like that. Yes, Kent has a pile stashed somewhere. Yeah, well, of course he has. You see, only a few months ago, and I made a clip of it, he was saying that he's sold millions of DVDs. So what number does that conjure up for you? If he has sold millions of DVDs, well, at least 1 million, because otherwise it would be hundreds of thousands, wouldn't it? So at least 1 million DVDs. How much are those sets? They're $50. Right. This is pretty advanced for Hovind mathematicians, but I then multiplied 1 million being the least number he could have sold. I multiplied it by 50, and I got $50 million. So Kent has turned over in the last little while at least $50 million, if he's telling the truth. I have no reason to suspect that he isn't at this stage. So where is that money gone? Which mattress or mistress is it kept under? Interesting. Yeah, so I think you're right. Kent likely has a pile stashed somewhere, that's for sure. He's like these evangelical preachers who line their own pockets. And once again, I don't mean that very. I know pastors, I know preachers, I know priests who are good people and have a heart for their congregation. But Kent doesn't. And, he'll always say things like, if you don't work, you don't eat, and blah, blah, blah. So that makes him a bad person in my book. Kent owes the government at least 10 mil, so he can't really spend his stash. Well, that's the thing. If he does spend it, he'll get caught in the meantime. So, excuse me while I yawn. Oh, this is a bit bad. I'll have a drink of water. Yeah, so he can't spend that because he'll get caught. And of course, that's how he got caught for his tax-related crimes. He was in spending the cash, and he thought he was so clever because you take out 10,000 or more in a day, the bank has to report you to the IRS. If it's less, they don't. You think, well, how does he get caught then? What did he do? Well, there's another law attached to that called structuring. And that means if you deliberately go in and take out, say, $9,500 every day or every week to keep under that 10, then you're also guilty of a crime. And that crime is called structuring. And that's exactly what he did. Exactly what he did. Yeah. I'm an investigator, Frank, of financial things. Like I think what you say, an auditor. But I mainly do a lot of auditing in Australia. I do stuff where fraud is suspected. So it's probably why I can ask questions that it's hard for people to evade, So, yeah, so giving you an example of that type of thing, when Kent says he majors in math and science, and then an interviewer says, well, that's good. Where did you major in math and science? And then Kent says, oh, that doesn't matter. I would not let that point go as an investigator. I would not let that point go until he'd been forced to answer. And in many cases, if I'm looking at stuff and it turns out fraud's been involved, then they're forced to answer in court. Nowadays, there's a lot of stuff leaves a paper trail, so so that's what I used to do. Yeah. So it's not like a PI. It's nothing too exciting, and it is financial stuff. So, the ability to read balance sheets, looking where money can be hidden away, that was a big part of things. And that's probably gave me a healthy suspicion of people, fast-talking people, whether they be Kent or car sales. No, that's unfair on car sales. No. But those sort of people that just talk big and deliver very little. So, yeah. Owen was reporting that the church is pointing at Greg Glock about missing money, and he isn't with his first wife either. All right. Probably the problem is I don't know who Greg Glock is. I'll have to look that up like that later. But nothing surprises me. You remember that Jimmy Swaggart? He's still around, I think. And he was a preacher and gospel singer, not a bad singer, I might add. And he was caught with the prostitutes, and he goes up to the front of the church crying, "Oh, I'm sinned." And all the stupid mugs start giving him money again. I mean, it's just awful, isn't it? Yeah. Money and naked, yes. Often do get naked or necked. But it's not only that, Frank. That's part of it. You've got to take, with Hovind, you've got to take the whole picture. First of all, I don't like people taking advantage of other people. And especially people who are a little bit simple is probably the wrong word, or maybe it's the right word, but people are vulnerable. I think that's, yeah. And I feel that he gets vulnerable people and he takes their money. What happened to his third wife, Cindy? You could tell she's a vulnerable person. She lost virtually her life saving to that Kent. And, so that's what I have a big thing for, Frank. Then I go further than that. And then I see him pushing bullshit, some of the biggest frauds and fraudster type people who'd sell you the bits of the Noah's Ark if they could, and say if they've discovered and this and that, and it's just rubbish. And all these, once again, these gullible people believe it. So I get upset about that. And then there's the type of people that Kent has. That Kent has on his property at DAL, and we all know the likes of Chris Jones and Brady Barham. I use the word they did because can get your show flagged in some way. But let's say PDF files sounds a bit like what some of those people were. Well, that's just a disgrace. Yeah. And then Davey says Jim Backer, too. Yes, that's Jim Backer was a shocker. And he was married to that lady, Tammy Faye Back. And originally, I used to have no time for her. She was like a made-up doll. And then I discovered she's quite a talented singer. Now, I don't know if she was in it or not, If she was, I got no time. But if what her husband was up to came as a surprise, then I do feel a certain sympathy with her. So, yeah. Frank, the Jimmy Swaggart fiasco. Huge story in the 80s, just part of a sketch on Saturday Night Live here in the US. Yeah, well, they're all. And remember that one too, that what's it called? There was a guy that goes around debunking people, Randy, the amazing Randy, and he caught Pete, somebody, an evangelist, out cheating completely and talking to his wife, who was checking the prayer requests. So she had them, and then she'd pass them on by headphone or wireless headphones to Peter on stage, Peter Popoff, and then he'd just repeat it. So that all these people thought that he was, able to read what was going on, and he was just a cheat and a fraud. Yeah, James Randi was the person who stood up to a lot of these religious frauds. He was good, Jay. I miss, he's been gone quite a while now. So you miss these people. You think, oh, I'll never see someone quite the same again. You're probably right. But someone will come up. Someone will pop up. But Peter Popoff, for example, he's back at it again, and these mugs are sending him money. I mean, God, you might as well send it to Hovind. Do about as much good. Terrible, terrible stuff. Yeah, so that's me. Yeah, Randy took down Popoff. He also took down another guy called James someone or other, who was making the pages of a telephone book turn, using psychic powers. It turns out he was blowing on the pages, and that's why they're opening. So, of course, when Randy sets up this test, this guy can't do it. It completely sprung. Yeah, he had a big prize, $1 million prize. Yeah. That could prove. Kent Hovind had $250,000 prize for get something, but because nobody was ever going to be winner, he would set it up so they just couldn't win. Yeah. Popoff weren't flushed down. So, yeah, my big bit videos recently, the one that surprised me was I put up one saying that Kent lies about Forrest Valkai, and he did. And I put that up, and a lot of people have watched and liked that. So it just shows Kent is the lying Kent that he is. Some of the others don't get that. The only reason I want the views is because I'm not monetized. I don't want people falling for Kent. So I went on the George Janko show in the comments, and there's lots. I tried to comment on as many as I could, and some you get a reply from. Some are deeply embedded in the whole Hovind thing, and some will think for themselves, and that's what I just hope for. I can, yeah. Now, what other ones have I been doing? What about Kent saying that humans sort of somehow wrangled dinosaurs? His obsession with the, shall we say, the Johnsons of male creatures and the different sizes, and he's talking about that. The fact that Kent thinks that moon rocks were created when the fountains of the deep broke open and shot big craft right up into big rocks right up into the moon and creating the craters. Just plain nuts. Imagine the power that would be needed for that. More than just hydraulic pressure, that's for sure. There's a thing of Kent Hovind and Stephen Anderson sort of kissing and making up in a way, metaphorically. Yeah, he's got a few things up about him. Not a whole lot, but enough. Now, yeah, the lunar bukkake theory is. AJ is still around, I believe, but he's, I'm not sure. The last I heard, he might have found someone. I'm not sure, and whether that means he just hasn't got time. But he did a nice compilation of his worst debate moments. I might have to put that up because I'd love to enter them in this competition. I'm not on Facebook, so whereas he announced the competition. But, yeah, I just want to show the guy for the fool that he is. What other things? And we won't call the lunar bukkake theory a theory because it's not even a hypothesis. It's just something he plucked out of his ass. A theory being the highest standard of scientific proof, which is something that's very hard to get through the thick skulls of many of these creationists. I've got one, because Proverbs guy put one up of Stephen Anderson and Kent Hovind, and they really attacked Kent and made excuses for all that sort of thing. Yeah, so I forgot where I was going there. Yep. And then I put up a clip afterwards showing the two agreeing. And they're agreeing on capital punishment and for what reason. Not good. Not good. What else? So that's some of the things. Now, some of the shorts. Right. The most ridiculous things Kent has ever said, says Davey. And my fan, your fan, cover to cover book reviews. I don't know if you've seen cover to cover book review, but cover to cover book review is one of the incredibly stupid Hovind followers. And I really do, try and talk to, I've given up because he's just unfathomable. You'll never be able to convince cover to cover book reviews. And when you prove something, he doesn't understand basic logic. But it gets people good laughs. That's stupid. Yeah. So, yep. And what's it say here? Yep. Fell for Kent's story, hook, line, and sinker. That's for sure. Yeah. So I've put some of his singing up on these favorite videos, and the thing where he demands that Eric return his Swiss Army pocket knife or whatever in his underpants. God, return my underpants. Hands off my underpants. Jesus. Unbelievable. Things about him and humans riding dinosaurs. Also, Bill Ludlow, who's deceased now, he did some good stuff on Kent's nonsense over an obsession with the size of male, shall we say, members or penises. goes on and on about that. So I copied that, put it up with an acknowledgement to Bill. Um, and then he was doing these ones about women's breasts, and he just seemed to go on and on, almost drooling. So and I put up a clip of that called Kent Hovind, Boobies, Birds and Bees. And then another one where he's talking about how the people in the Second World War, they fought for whatever. And he said that he's fighting a similar war on a different front or whatever. Unbelievable that Kent would dare to claim the valor of people who have really, really fought in a situation. Kent would be the first to run. You just know that. I'm not a brave person myself, but I don't go around sort of boasting and being a braggart. Oh, my daddy did this, my daddy did that. I don't. Yeah. Frank says even Sandra doesn't want to get anywhere near Owen's underwear now. Well, I imagine, but I imagine he's the sort that used to iron it for him. Oh, hi, Big Bad Mama. Good to see you in the show. I was just saying, because you're interested in world events, my sympathy to those in Australia, because I wasn't there long ago. I was there not long ago to that terrible mass shooting, 15 innocent people in Bondi. That's a famous beach in part of Australia, known for just people. It's iconic. To be like Venice Beach is iconic to LA or Malibu or whatever, if I've got it right. Well, Bondi Beach is iconic to Australia and its neighbour New Zealand. A lot of people, and just unbelievable attack. Life will never be the same. But a very interesting thing was that one of the examples of bravery was shown, and it was attack on basically a Jewish celebration, but there would be a mix of Jewish people and non-Jewish people involved who were killed. But one of the people that tried to wrestle the gunman down, and you can see it on YouTube, was a guy that would appear to have been Arab guy. So it shows you there's good people and bad people on all sides. And this guy just went in there and he grabbed that rifle that the guy was firing with and wrestled him off him. Unfortunately, he then got shot by the other person's co-offender. But he didn't die, so that was good. But there's a tragedy just across here, because we're not used to, when I lived in Australia and New Zealand, we're not used to all this shooting stuff you guys take for granted in America. Oh, now this looks good. Joe and I are going to talk about Hovind's buddy Ron Wyatt tomorrow afternoon. Well, I'll be interested to see that. Ron Wyatt. Because that man is a charlatan, or was a charlatan. Just unbelievable that he just happened to find all these artifacts. If you believe Ron Wyatt, boy, have I got a deal for you. I'm going to sell you. What can I think of? What relic can I think of? I'm going to sell you some straw, petrified straw, from the original manger where Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Just send in a whole heap of money and details of your credit cards, and it'll get back to you, sometime never. Yeah. Yes, Big Bad Mama, it was father and son at Bondi Beach. Another thing that just really got to me was that, okay, so this hero in the crowd tried to disarm and sort of disarmed the guy, I think the father, and you could see that on there. But then when the police moved in, to try and get the other offender who's still shooting, the other offender started yelling, "Don't shoot, don't shoot, don't shoot." What? So he'd shot everybody up. He was pleading like a little baby. And that irked me Me too. Yeah. I love this Justin Tio. I'm shocked Ron didn't find Eve's apple still with teeth marks in it. Dave Allen has got a great thing of how Adam must have woken up one day and there's someone next to him in bed, and she's got a couple of things that he doesn't have. And she's missing one thing that he did have. And what would he have thought? Dave Allen. I think I sent that to you, Big Bad Mama. That was fun. Probably they probably have some with Ron's widow. Yes, well, Ron's widow is very involved with that person Stephen Boland. So who's been reposting the Kent Hovind, that ass-licking show that he did investigating Kent Hovind. It was the most cringe I've ever seen. And he's put that up and he's getting bugger all views. But he does get lots of views when he does Ron Wyatt. So I think he was hoping that he would get, when you put up the Kent Hovind stuff, it didn't quite work. Kent Hovind stuff is nonsense, of course. We should have a competition who can find or think of the most original relic that you could probably sell on whatever platform, and suck in these fundamentalists. Yeah, because they seem to listen to whatever Kent says. Yeah. So what else has been happening? Yes. What's Joseph's? Who's the secretary at DAL? Married to Joseph. Well, I'd been making some comments on George Janko's show, and yes, Bobby, her name was, and I said on the Joseph Janko show comments, children aren't safe at Kent's dinosaur land. One drowned, or should I say drowned dead? No, I won't be ignorant. I'll say the correct way. One drowned and another ended up in bed with one of Kent's friends who insisted visit. So then the replies, Bobby, who's the secretary and married to Joseph, writes, I lived and worked at Dinosaur Adventure Land for almost 4 years. Sorry, sir, you are a liar. I'll pray for you, sir. Well, I'm not lying. It is absolutely correct. One drowned, another ended up in bed with one of Kent's friends who insisted visit. So what's lying about that, Bobby? Come on, tell me. So I replied to her, sorry to burst your bubble, but a boy sadly drowned there, and all your Kent could say was, well, the other kids had a blast. Kent also insisted Jones visit, and when he did, he was traveling with a minor, and that boy, or the person, Chris Jones, ended up in bed with that boy. Are we expected to believe they just hold hands or cuddled? Come on, you know. I wasn't born yesterday. Yep. So, well, I don't have a whole lot more to say. Here we go. I'll sell you some vials of blood collected from the Nile River. Really? Oh. Well, what I could do, because I sell the washing powder that Mary, Mother of Jesus, used to use when she washed the clothes of her and Joseph, and it will probably get that blood out, because so I think that's what we'll have to do. You'll get the blood, and I'll sell you the washing powder, for it to be, if in case it's spilled. Oh God, this could be something. We're on to here, Frank. Yeah, so I'm probably about to knock it on the head, go and see if there's been any more stuff. To be honest, lately there's been so much stuff. It's hard to know what to put up and what not to put up. I do get also annoyed when Kent is talking about the history of the Second World War and he tries to blame it on Darwinism and Charles Darwin. What a load of crap. And he lies about things, It just, You can't help people save people from themselves, though, can you? And I just got to hope. But after seeing a lot of the comments on the George Janko show, it didn't leave me with a whole lot of hope, to be honest. They were all swallowing Kent hook, line, and sinker. Captive says, what's the status on Hovind's crab and arc displays? Well, the crab is there, but now that it's there, nobody seems to be taking any notice of it. So I can't imagine it was very exciting. The arc is nearly finished. It's a very horrible looking thing. It's going to contain rooms. Hovind is very hot on the fact that his ark has rooms, whereas Ken Ham's ark has cages. Apparently, the King James Bible talks about rooms because Kent says that they had rooms so the animals could go out and feed themselves. I don't know how. I don't know on what. So he just makes all this shit up. And so he was asking for donations of pink toys and blue toys. I feel like sending him a rainbow one. That would set him off, wouldn't it? Oh, the other thing too that got Proverbs guys did a show, and it was actually a repeat of when Kent and Stephen Anderson were discussing, and something was really eating at Stephen, and so Anderson and Hovind clashed quite badly, and it took Hovind was quite surprised by this, not used to being questioned or queried. So yeah, that was very, very interesting. But I posted alongside that things where, because Proverbs guy tried to say, look at this, this horrible Stephen Anderson is wonderful, our wonderful Kent, because Proverbs guys try to lick Kent's ass as often as possible. And look at that. And so I was pointing out that, of course, that I had clips of Anderson and Hovind agreeing on who should be, shall we say, their lives should end. And they agreed on the types of people that should be ended. Pretty bad. So they've got far more in common than they don't. Now then, Justin says, did the animals scoop their own poo too? No, I don't think so. Yes. You can donate pink ones and blue ones or rainbow ones for a wind up. Yeah, that would be good. I'd love to see that happen. Well, folks, I'm quite tired at the moment, so and nobody's come on, so I'll probably end the stream there. It will be a short, sharp prick. Kent, if you're there, it's your last chance to come on. Sandra, if you wish to come on, please do. I've been trying to make contact with Kent's sister-in-law, Diane Hovind, who first blew the beans on Sandra leaving. She's welcome to call any time. So is Eric, any of the grandchildren, anybody. Anybody living at Dinosaur Adventureland, even Joseph. All welcome to call and have a discussion with a very, very polite host, but a host that won't let you get away with BS if you're going to say that. So, okay, so, well, it doesn't look as though anybody is going to come on, so I will say this is the Bawles. Claude Music. Oh, yeah. We need more Claude. I've got to try and write something for Christmas. I think carols would be good. If I was Hovind, I'd say carols or graces or, use any woman's name, but I'm not him. I'm going to have those awful, awful jokes. It's amazing how many people on the Janko show thought his jokes were great. They were just awful. Anyway, okay, so it is the Bawles saying, over and out, and see you next show. I'll try and give you more notice. Okay, bye-bye.